Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem. Welcome back to today's Daf. ARACHIN Lamed Beis. We begin at the Mishnah on Lamed Aleph Lamed Beis, which is 5 lines off the bottom. So, Batei Rechaim, the home in a walled city, once sold, can be bought back. You can compel the buyer to sell it back to you, provided it's still within a year of purchase. Says the Mishnah, Barishoina, way back in the day, so come the last day of the year-long buyback time frame, last day, the buyer says, I'm getting out. I'm disappearing. So that the seller can't find me to buy back his house. So he would take off. But he would hide that very last day of the 12-month period, which of course was not fair to the seller. Why would he do that? So that he keeps the house for keeps. That wasn't a very fair system. If you can just disappear on him. Hiskin Hillel Hazakin made a takana, established a system. You don't need him. Leave the money, in the Beis Hamikdash there. Put it in you come and you get it when you're up to it. Hiskin Hillel he would drop off Moisav, the money. So the seller would drop off his money, the lishka, in the lishka, this special, this chamber in the Beis Hamikdash. Leave it there until the fellow decides to come pick up his money. And then you can now you can just access the house without his permission. And he can break the door. And enter the home. You don't need his presence. You don't need his consent. You don't need his cooperation. And when that fellow decides to come around and pick up his money, he'll know where to find it. And come pick up his money. Omar Rava. Says Rava, we can derive an interesting halacha from the very fact that it even necessitated an establishment of a special halacha, a special system of forced payment. We can conclude that typically you cannot compel a person to receive your money, if not for this special takana that allows it. Based on this new takana of Hillel, we can derive regarding a similar halacha. For instance, a fellow issues a divorce document to a woman, on condition you pay me $200. And then he's playing games. He's not accepting the money, right? To keep her, wants to keep her in limbo. But not so if she paid him the money, willingly, so the divorce takes effect. Baal karcha, let's say she paid it to him Baal karcha unwillingly. Now she says she lost some bevesa, she put into this fellow's house. It doesn't work. It's not a valid divorce. Because you cannot force a person to accept payment from you. How do I know? From the fact that we turn to the next Talmud. From the very fact that Hillel had to make this special takana. That in this case, in Sina Baal Korcha, you have in the Sina, that a forced payment is considered a valid payment. What does that tell us that about, in general? That this type of transfer doesn't work. In the Sina Baal Korcha, you have in the Sina, forced transfer doesn't work. Now, by the way, Tosfos points out, of course you can't force a person to accept a gift. That's out of the question. Rather, what we're discussing is a payment which you're compelled to make. I mean, she took a divorce and she's compelled to complete her end of the bargain. So you'd think, perhaps, since she's compelled to do it, he has to accept it, whether he likes it or not. She has to be Mekayim the get. Very similar to the case in our Mishnah. Look, it's critical for him to deliver this money so he can get his house back. So that's the shayla, that's the discussion. It would seem you can't force him unless it's a special takana as per our Mishnah. But otherwise, in general, you can't. You need his cooperation. Maskef lo Rav Papa. So Rav Papa asks, V'tema, some say Rav Ashi. Perhaps you can. Typically, you can force him to accept. If he's around, if it's b'fanav. The reason why we need a special takana in our case, because there were 2 strikes. He was unwilling, and he wasn't even around. Perhaps he'll only needed to make the special allowance. That's when it's shalai b'fanav, when it's not in his presence. He was hiding. Al b'fanav, but if he's around, too bad on him. Bein midaita, bein bal karcha, have matana. It's considered a proper transfer, whether he likes it or not. And therefore, in the case of the get, if she finds him, she just throws it at him and puts it in his... It works. Iko de amri. In fact, there was another version of this whole discussion. Amar Rava. So Rava commented on our Mishnah mitakanos shel Hillel, based on Hillel's newly established takana to allow forced payment to buy back the house. Hareza gita. So let's say in a case where he issues a get, amanas shetitni masayim. This is on condition that he paid me $200. And also she paid it to him. Whether or not he likes it, whether or not he's cooperating, it's considered a transfer and a payment, and the get is activated. Because if it's in his presence, it works. Hillel only had to step in when it was in his absence. You have 2 strikes against you, but if he's around, you give it to him, it's his. Whether or not he's cooperating, it works. So they asked, who says? Maybe even in his presence, it doesn't help. If he's an unwilling partner. It so happens that Hillel needed to be misakin when the fellow disappeared. It so happens to be that he would typically disappear. And that was the, circumstance surrounding the... But who says if he would have been here, it would be any better? Hillel would still have to make the same takana, because you can't force a person to accept your payment. Perhaps whether or not he's here. If he's in cooperation, it works. But against this will you can't. In Hillel's case, it so happens to be that he would disappear and he had to be masakin to address that. But perhaps even without that factor, it wouldn't help us. You would still have to be masakin that it's considered a payment, because bal karcha. It doesn't work. So in the case of the get, if it's a forced payment, even if he's around, who says it works? Continues the Mishnah. So just bottom line, we have the halacha that you can redeem it within a year. What if he disappears on you? He'll hazakim a special takana, drop it in the pushka there. He'll pick it up when he's up to it. What does that tell us regarding a general Baal Korche payment? So that's depending on the 2 versions of the Gemara. Going to the first version, even Baal Korche, it's an asina, if he's around. Going to the second version, not necessarily so. So we speak about a home within a walled city. What's considered a bias in a Batei Rechaima? Just a place of dwelling? What about a facility, a factory? What about a field within a walled city? So which process would apply to that? So we know that typically a field would have its own buyback system. There's a mandatory 2-year wait before you buy it back. You only buy it back until the yovel, right? On the other side of the spectrum, we have the bias in a ARACHIN, in a walled city, where it goes the opposite. You can buy it back right away, but only up until a year. So we have to, explore in which situation would this system apply, and in which situation would the other system apply. Kol shulufnim and achayim, says the Mishnah. Any structure, anything within the walled city, You have a cistern in the ground, water reservoir. You have a bathhouse, right? It's classified as Bate Rechema, even though it's not technically a place of dwelling. Chutz min hasadis, except for an actual field. That's a totally different type of entity. And the redemption process is as per discussed in the past, right? So you need to wait, give them 2 years, and then you can just redeem it, until Yovel, after which it comes back to you, if it was unredeemed. Okay, so any structure, yes, but otherwise not. He says this classification applies to fields as well. If it's within a walled city, it follows that system where it can be bought back only up until the year. Now, what about a home within the wall itself, built, in the actual wall, the thickness of the wall? Like we have in, Sefer Yeshua, Rachav, right? She lived in the wall. The spies that were sent to survey the land, they sent by Yeshua, right? They stayed in her place, which was actually in the wall itself. Interesting configuration. Do you say it's considered within a walled city, or do you say no because it is the wall? It doesn't qualify. Of course it does. The outer wall of the home is the wall of the city, and it's considered contained within the walls of the city. The outer wall of the house, that's the wall of the city. So it's considered Bate Arichin. Taner Rabbanan. Okay, let's explore all the different types of facilities and what's included and what's not. Taner Rabbanan, bias. So Pasuk speaks about a home. Ein bias, perhaps only a home qualifies. What about olive presses? Bate mechatzois, bathhouses. Umigdalis, these in-ground, armoires, v'shevach and birdhouses, boiris, v'shich and mars, all types of holes and cisterns and containments in the ground. Any in-ground facility in the city. What about a land, a farm? That has to be, a structure, like a house. Even a field. So when it says bias, ein leila bias, perhaps only an actual home. And even farms. Anything within the city is considered for this process. So why does the pasuk single out a home if you're going to even include farms? You're right. We're not speaking about a regular farm intended for agriculture. Rather, Rameir only includes a piece of land which is intended for building material supply. So it's close enough to a home because it's supporting the homes, it's supplying material for the homes. But you're right, just a plain farm, of course, is not included because it's totally dissimilar to bias. But this is close enough. It's supplying material for building of homes. Rashi explains this place where they hew the stones, or metzula, some place which supplies sand for the cement. Ikabenayu, that is the subject of our dispute, which Rameh considers as bias bate barechayma. A tiny fact of a bias which supports this approach, that Rameh only includes this type of property, which has construction element to it. Chus metzula. Rabbi Omer kibatim, it's classified like the batim. Rabbi Doimer kisadis. What about living space within the actual city wall? Bayis habonim b'chayim. Rabbi Doimer enu kibati rechayim b'chul. Omer b'yechanan. They're both based on the same pasuk. Ushnei mikra echad darshu. Which pasuk? Vatiridim b'cheva b'dachaloin. So Rachav, she allowed the spies to escape out the window. Kibeis Abir Kirachayma was a very convenient location because she lived within the wall of the city. Uba Chayma hi Shabbos. How do we define this pasuk? Reb Shimon Savar Kavash Likra. He says, look at the simple meaning of the pasuk. It says, B'chayma hi Shabbos. She's considered within the wall of the city. Rabbi Dasavar b'chayim Yeshavas. She's living in the wall, not in a walled city. So there's that slight, nuance difference here between a person actually living within the confines of a walled city or living in the wall of the city, in which case it's not classified as Bate ARACHIN. Now suppose the city doesn't really have a bona fide wall. Its roofs are its wall, meaning that the houses are built in such close proximity to each other, they form a perimeter wall just by virtue of their structure and their perhaps slanty roofs, which sort of join with each other and create this sort of protective perimeter wall. Does that qualify? No. Or it has a wall today, but that wall was not dated from the time of Yehoshua ben Nun when Klal Yisrael entered Eretz Yisrael. That's the criterion. It has to have been classified as a walled city at that point when we entered and took over the land. That's when the classification, process took effect. But if the wall is not that old, it doesn't qualify as a Bate ARACHIN. What classifies as Bate ARACHIN? It has to be a formal city, a properly sized, a city. Shalish chatzer, at a minimum, has to have 3 chatzer, 3 yards, with 2 homes in each. Shnei bat, and surrounded by a wall, which dates back to the time of Yehoshua ben Nun. For instance, I'll give you 8 cities. For example, Kutsara, Hayishana, the old Kutsara, Shal Tzipori by Tzipori, outside Tzipori. V'Chakra, another town, Shal Gush Chalav, near Gush Chalav. V'Yudfas, the old Yudfas, Hayishana, V'Gamla, and the town of Gamla, V'Gedud, V'Chadid, V'Oina, V'Yerushalayim, V'Chein Kayetzim, and all the other cities which fit this bill. Tanarabanan, we learn in the Brisa, it needs to have a proper perimeter wall, as opposed to the homes themselves, squished next to each other, creating that protective, perimeter. Tanarabanan Chayma, a proper wall. Well, sure is a wall, Igar, consisting of, roofs attached to each other. The word Saviv indicates from all sides. Prat Latveria is opposed to Tveria, which is only surrounded by a wall on 3, whereas in the 4th it has the river, the Kineris, right, the lake around. So that doesn't qualify. Prat Tveria Shiyama, because the sea Chaymasa forms that wall on the 4th side. What if it had a wall, but it no longer does? So according to Rashi, the word loy was spelled very interestingly. Instead of asher loy means, he has a wall, lamed vav, it was lamed vav and an aleph, does not have, to teach you that it goes both ways. As long as it had, even though currently it doesn't, that's enough. Asher loy chaim, aval b'shein le'achshav, even though it currently does not have a wall, it had earlier, that's enough. Now Tosfos disputes, Tosfos says we have no girsa like that in our Chumashim, doesn't say loy with a vav and an aleph. Rather, what the Gemara means is that it's spelled with an aleph and read loy, as though it's a vav, in which case it contains both meanings. Here's a list of 8 walled cities. Tana, the Brisa explains for us. The city of Gamla was in the province called Galil Begalil. The city Gedud, right? Gamla Begalil. Gedud was Beivar Yard on the other side, on the eastern side of the Jordan River. The town Chadid and Oina and Yerushalayim were in the province of Yehuda, that territory. The Chadid, Vani, Yerushalayim, Yehuda. Micah Amar, what's the Brisa, elaborating? What's the Brisa clarifying? And Rashi explains. Is there only one walled city in Galil called Gamla? What's the point of pointing out one city and and only Gedud is the only one in Ever Yardin? Must have been many more. My Kama, what's the uniqueness about these towns? We turn to the Brisa. The Brisa means like this. Of course, there were many more. Hachi Kama, the Brisa means Ad Gamla. So if you're traveling up to Galil, going from south to north, as you enter the Galil province, you'll have many walled cities until you reach Gamla. Okay, so up until that point, including Gamla, are ancient walled cities from the time of Yeshua. Ad Gamla Begal. And likewise, if you cross over the Jordan to the east, all those cities that you encounter, all those walled cities until you get to Gedud, they're all considered ancient walled cities. Ad Gedud Bevar Yarden. And likewise in Yehuda, V'chadid, V'ayna, V'yishlayim, these three cities, Yehuda, are considered formerly walled cities from ancient times. Rava Amar, he has a different explanation as to why the Bryce is singling out these names, to avoid confusion, because there were some duplicates. Two cities with the same name. You had Gamla Begalil, which is a properly walled city, Lafuk, as opposed to Gamla, a city with the same name, the Sharatzis in other areas. Likewise, you have the town of Gedud Bevar Yarden, which was a qualifying city, Lafuk, as opposed to Gedud, a matching city. The Sharatzis is found in a different place, which is an unqualifying city, etc., etc. Enoch, Delaika the Kavasayu, so in fact, the other walled cities, which did not have duplicates, there was no need to mention them and point them out. Asks the Gemara, Yerushalayim and Michlet Ba. So we mentioned Yerushalayim as one of the walled cities, qualifying cities, in which case if you sell a house in Yerushalayim, once the year is up, it's the buyer's to keep. Is that so? Hatani, we have a Raisa that this halacha of permanence does not apply to Yerushalayim. In fact, Asora Dvarim, Namr Yerushalayim, unique halachas applicable to Yerushalayim. One of them is Ein habayis cholat ba. The home does not become cholat. You don't have it for keeps. You can always buy it back. And likewise, Kam Yavel goes back to the owner. Amr Rabbi Yechanan, and the Rashi explains because it says Sav, only property which is meant for your descendants, as opposed to Yerushalayim, which was not given to the Shvatim. It was a whole different, allocation system. So basically, Yerushalayim is not really covered by this whole process. Amar B'Yechanan. You're right. The Brisa never meant to indicate otherwise. When it mentioned Yerushalayim, when the Brisa mentioned Yerushalayim, it was just for comparison's sake, that the other names mentioned in the Brisa are compared to Yerushalayim with respect to having this wall from ancient times. But certainly, regarding practical halacha, they're not like Yerushalayim in this respect. Because in Yerushalayim there's no din of permanence, as opposed to other cities which have the permanence element to them. Rav Ashi Amar, another terrorist, the Kasha. It's not the Yerushalayim Yerakdosh that we're talking about. Lav Amar Rav Yosef, Trei Kaddish Havu. Didn't we have a discussion in Maseches Makkos? We had a whole discussion there, and we came out that Rav Yosef discovered that there were two cities of Kaddish, two cities with the same name. Likewise over here, there were two cities with the name Yerushalayim. One was Irakodesh Yerushalayim, where there's no permanence, as opposed to the other city with the same name, which was likewise a walled city and had this whole process applicable there. Now comes an interesting question. Again, why do we point out those 8 cities? Tanya. Amar Bishmol Rabbi Yossi. Why? Lama Manu Chachamim Es Elu. Why is it so that the Brisa points out just these 8 cities, out of so many others which had been walled from way back? The answer is like this. Because only these were refreshed. Their Kedusha was reactivated, which was a requirement. So although when our nation entered Eretz Yisrael in the time of Yeshua, we sanctified the whole country, this whole land. But once our nation was sent out into exile, that Kedusha expires. We have to come and reactivate the Kedusha upon re-entering Eretz Yisrael in the time of the second Beis HaMikdash. And in fact, they did not reapply Kedusha to the entire land, only to the cities that they actually came to and they settled in, which were these 8. Because when the members of the exile and they came back, Matsu, when they came back to Eretz Yisrael, Matsu, Ela B'Kitch. Okay, so they encountered these cities and they reactivated their Kedusha. And Rashi explains, it involved a whole formal process with the Karban, with the Bezdin, with the Shir, to give it Kedusha, because, as Taisus points out, we have several elements of Kedusha A walled city isn't just a walled city. It has the halachas of batei rechayma regarding, the selling of property. It has the halacha that you send out a mitzvah from those cities. It has special kedusha, so it had to be, activated. Aval rishonis, but the earlier cities, even those that were walled and had kedusha, the first time around, but they lost their kedusha. Misha batul kedusha aretz, when our nation went out to exile, and the kedusha of Eretz Yisrael was temporarily suspended. So that explains why we list these 8 cities in particular, because only these were relabeled and re-sanctified. Apparently Rabbi Shmuel Reisi holds, that refreshing of Kedusha is required. So the original Kedusha doesn't just outlast the Golus. Because somebody holds, Kedusha Rishonah, the initial Kedusha that happened in the time of Yeshua ben Nun, Kitchel Shata only, was effective for that time, as long as we were living in Eretz Yisrael, but did not last, past the Golus. At that point, it was suspended and had to be reactivated. Asks the Gemara, really? According to this opinion, Rabbi Shmuel bar Yesi, the original Kedusha did not last for all time. Here comes a kasha from the same person, Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Yesi. So again, he poses this question, why are we singling out these 8 cities? You think there were only 8 walled cities around? We have, regarding the land of Oig, Melech Bashan, Shishim, Ir, Chevel Argov, Kol Eila, Betzuris, 60 walled cities, fortified cities. So even over there they had walled cities. Certainly that's Israel, they had many more. So why did the Chacham single out these 8 cities? You know why? Because when we returned from Bavel, they encountered these cities and they sanctified them. Really? Kitchen? They had to re-sanctify them? If you look in a couple of lines in this Brisa, he holds that the Kedusha was still active through the Gullus. Kitchen, we said, you don't have to re-label them. Ella Umanam. It just means to say they encountered these cities and they listed them. Really, they're just an example of the many more. And not only these cities have Kedusha, Elakol, Shatala, Lecha, Mesiris, Biyadchem Avesecha. But regarding any city for which you have a tradition from your ancestors, that in fact it qualifies, that it's a walled city from the time of Yeshua, then he's in. Kol mitzvahs, halal and hagaspa, all these mitzvahs apply to it as well. You know why? You don't have to refresh the Kedusha. Because the original Kedusha that happened way back when we entered Israel the first time was applied for then and for all time. Rabbi Shmuel bar Yesi is speaking. Whereas a minute ago he told us in the other brisa, no, we have to refresh the Kedusha. We have several ways to explain. One option is Trei Tanoi. While there were 2 Tanoim with different versions of Rabbi Shmuel bar Yesi's opinion. According to some, it outlasted the Gullus. According to others, it had to be re-initiated. Another way to answer is that it's not the same person speaking. One of these brises is actually Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Yesi Amra. And in fact, he holds that the Kedusha outlasted the exile, as we had before in Amud Aleph, with the Loi, with the Vav and the Aleph. Rabbi Lazar Reisi Aimer, Asher Loi Chayma teaches us, even though currently he has no wall, it's irrelevant. He had it earlier in time of Yeshua, that works. Apparently, the Kedusha just, lasted through the Gullus. Okay, so as to the reasons, we have 2 positions regarding the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael. Did it outlast the Gullus, or perhaps it had to be reactivated? So we have 2 opinions. One says the first Kedusha lasted through everything. The second Shita says no. As long as they were there, they had conquered the land, fine. But when we're off Eretz Yisrael, the land's Kedusha is contingent upon our presence regarding all matters of Kedusha. So now for the reasons. My time. Demand Omar Kedusha Rishon Kedusha the Shat of Lekishlas Lavai. How do we explain the Shita? Where's the source? That the original Kedusha does not last permanently. Rather, they had to re-sanctify Eretz Yisrael upon re-entering. We have a pasuk. They came back from Golus. It says, "Vayasu kol hakol hashavim min hashvi sukkos." So they erected these sukkos. Vayeshu basukkos. They sat in the sukkos. First time in ages. Kol yasu mimei Yeshua ben Nun came to Yisrael v'tisam hagdil moed. Huge celebration. First time since the time of Yeshua. We're talking about 800 plus years. How could that be? That they haven't observed Sukkah, mitzvah of Sukkah for so many years? Efshar bar David lost a Sukkah. David HaMelech, the big tzaddik, he didn't get them to build Sukkahs. And so on and so forth. Until Ezra came and reinstated the mitzvah of Sukkah. How could you say that? So you can't learn the pasuk literally. Rather, there is a lesson here, there's a hint. Something that went on at that point. Ella. What the pasuk is doing is making a correlation, matching their return to Eretz Yisrael in the time of Ezra to their initial entry in the time of Yeshua. Elo makish biyasam be'Ezra. Torah is connecting their entry into Eretz Yisrael now, when Ezra brought them back, l'biyasam be'Yeshua, to when they entered in the time of Yeshua. Just like then, they had to activate Kedusha. Likewise, they had to reactivate it now, because it was suspended when they left Eretz Yisrael. Ma bi'asam me'Yeshua, just like when they entered in the time of Yeshua, Monu Shmita v'Yelos, they had to start the count of Shemitah and Yovel. V'kicha Rechaima, to sanctify the walled cities. Af bi'yasam me'Ezra, likewise now they have to redo it again, because these things were suspended when they were absent from Eretz Yisrael. Monu Shmita v'Yelos, v'kicha Rechaima, v'Omer, we have another pasuk from Chumash Devarim. So after the Teichecha, after the Golus, it says Hashem will return us to Eretz Yisrael. V'yich Hashem l'kech la'aretz asher yorsha v'yisecha v'yirishta. Once again, a reference to our parents and us. What's the connection? Makish yirosha ascha l'yirishta v'yisecha. Torah here is equating our taking over the land to the original taking over of the land in the time of Yeshua. Ma yirusha v'yisecha b'chidush kol dvar. Just like when our parents came in the first time, they had to activate this whole system. Shemitah, Yovel, Kedusha, Sarachema, Af, Yerusha, Schal. Likewise, you, when you come back after Golus, it's upon you to reactivate the system again, which had been suspended in your absence. B'chidush kol dvar malol. Hence, we have a source that new activation is required. V'idach. Now, the other opinion, which says, no, the original Kedusha lasted throughout the Churban. So, how does he address these two psukim? So, firstly, that pasuk, which seems to relate to Yeshua, and what's going on? No, it has nothing to do with the Kedusha Haaretz. Rather, it's referring to something different. That they daven to Hashem to remove, to obliterate the Yetzer Hara of Avodah Zarah, which caused them great pitfall. They asked Hashem for Rachmanas, for compassion. They davened al Yetzer Avodah Zarah, for the desire to do Avodah Zarah ubadli. So Ezra, in fact, led the prayers, and he was successful in canceling the desire of Yetzer Hara, of Avodah Zarah. So what's the reference to a sukkah? It's just a metaphor. Va'agin's chus alayu, and his merits, his chus, protected the nation. His tefillah was effective. Ki sukkah, like a shelter, to shelter them from the Yetzer Hara of Avodah Zarah. Va'ayna the kokab k'rar leved Yeshua, and in fact that explains why the pasuk express like an element of dissatisfaction in reference to Yeshua, because you see that it was misspelled. The Yeshua typically is called Yehoshua fully. Yeshua now is sort of trimmed out a letter. The reason is because why didn't he accomplish the same? Why didn't he make the effort to remove the Yetzer Hara of Avodah Zarah and remove that stumbling block? Because Bishlam and Moshe L'bei Rachmi, we understand Moshe Rabbeinu didn't make that effort because he was living outside Eretz Yisrael. He didn't have the merit of Eretz Yisrael to accomplish that. El Yeshua, but Yeshua, the Havli Schus Eretz Yisrael, he was in Eretz Yisrael, he had that schus. Why didn't he make the effort? Why didn't he daven to have it cancelled? So that was the trimming of the letter. So in any case, it's not related to the halachic question of reinstating Kedusha and all that. It's just relating to a side point, an event that occurred, a very central event, but not relating to our topic. So they removed the Yetzer Hara of the Zarah. And what about that second pasuk from Devarim, which indicated likewise that the reinstate the kedusha? Just the opposite. According to this opinion, the pasuk means just the opposite. You don't need to reactivate the kedusha. Given the Yoshav Esech, once your parents inherited the land, their effect is long-lasting. Yarash Ta'ata, because of them, you got it too, which means to say the kedusha lasted throughout. Ask the Gemara. Okay, so we have the two opinions and the sources. Now, the Brisa indicated that when they returned from Golus, they observed the Shemitah, they counted, for the Yovel as well. Hold it, Yovel is a totally different story. For Yovel, we need our nation to be actually residing in Eretz Yisrael. That's a precondition for Yovel. We're going to see later based on the pasuk, we have to be around. And they weren't. Only a minuscule percentage of our nation came back to Eretz Yisrael. So how could they observe Yovel? Look, Mishagol Shevet Reuven, Shevet Gad, Shevet Menashe. We know that when Sancherev banished the tribe of Reuven, of Gad, half of Menashe, so we lost a section of our nation from Eretz Yisrael. Batlu Yovel, they suspended the Yovel system because we weren't all there. Certainly at the time of Ezra, the Chsibbe, where it says that only a small portion of our nation returned with him, 40,000 people. Kol HaKol Ke'echad Arba Riva, 4 times 10,000, Alpine plus 2,000, V'sheish Meis V'shishim 660, so it's 42,660. Have a money. How could he observe the Yovel? The Sani we have a Brisa, Mishagol Shevet Reuven, Shevet Gad, V'chatzi Shevet Menashe, Batlu Yovel. The Yovel was suspended when we lost part of our nation to Golus Shenemar. As the pasuk says, we have to all be there. Tesis points out you need, back on the Flamanal, you need at least a small portion of every shevet. You need a representation of every shevet sitting on their property, in their territory. Ukros and Dror Ba'ar Chol Yishvel. The Chol Yishvel means Bizman Shekol Yishvel there, when we're all there. Bizman Shekol Mitzasam, as opposed to when part left. Yachol. Furthermore, says the Brisa, they have to be situated in their respective territories. Let's say we're all there, but in the wrong territories. They're all mixed up. Shevet Binyamin is sitting in Yehuda. Shevet Yehuda, and the tribe of Yehuda Binyamin is situated in the Binyamin territory. Yovel Nei, would you still observe Yovel? No. In its place, everybody in their places. When they're sitting in their own territories. Not when they're mixed up. So in any case, they were precluded from doing Yovel at that point. You're right. They didn't actually observe Yovel, but Manu Yovel's got the Shvita. They still had to calculate the Yovel regarding configuring the Shemitahs, because Yovel was a year on its own, an extra year. So in order to observe Shemitah properly, you have to know when Yovel is and factor into the cycle. So you have 7 years of Shemitah, and 7 times 7, now you have a Yovel year. And then after the Yovel, you start the next Shemitah. You have to know where Yovel is to properly configure the Shemitah. Because Yovel is year 50, which is a separate year. Return to the next Talmud. Yeah, Hanichel Rabban, that's true according to Rabban. The Amr, you say Yovel is its own separate year. So you have to account for that. The Amr Shnas Chamishim Eino Min HaMinyan. Year 50 is a separate, year. El Rab Yudah, but according to Rab Yudah, that there is no special Yovel year. Every 50 years is Yovel, but it's already the first year of the next. It also counts as the first year of the next 7-year Shemitah cycle. So what's the point? Who cares about when Yovel is if you're not observing it anyway? El Rab Yudah, the Amr, who says Shnas Chamishim, year 50, El Lakan counts both ways. On the one hand, it's 50, but it's already also year 1 of the next Shemitah cycle. Lamali. So why do we have to factor in when Yovel is Shemitah and Sag? It's enough to speak about Shemitah. You're right. Havada, look, Rabbi Yudah is not going to go like Rabbi Yudah. Ask the Gemara. So you mean they didn't really observe Yovel? V'leimanu Shemitah v'Yovelis? And some take out Shemitah because the main focal point is on Yovel. Really? So once part of our nation were taken into, the far lands of northern China, some say that there's evidence of communities, insular communities, which perhaps are, the Shevet Reuven, parts of our nation which were taken to exile, who maintained their own, unique, Jewish lifestyle. All kinds of theories, all kinds of travelers, or reporting all kinds of things. Even recently, they say that it discovers indications of Jewish communities trapped, far out, inhabitable, inaccessible places, northern China and Afghanistan, and perhaps Ethiopia. So in any case, so once that happened, they didn't observe Yovel. We have a pasuk which seems to indicate that Yovel was very much in business. Many years after this occurred. So we have the prophecy of Yirmiyah. Again, this is during the first Beis Hamikdash. But this was after the Sancherif came and, took away the Shvatim. It says like this, Vaksiv, Mikeis Shavashalam Tishalchu, Ishesri Achiv, Ivri. Okay, once 7 years are up, you have to let the slave free, your brother who sold himself to you as a slave. Asher Yemachalcha. Okay, so the question was, first of all, what's 7 years? Pasuk says, everybody knows the Pasuk of Mishpatim, right? He works for 6. Year 7 he's out. So what do you mean working for 7 years? The question was, why after 7, after 6? We're not speaking about a standard servant. You're right. The person sells himself as a servant, it's only a 6-year stint, but Shevel Nirtza. We're talking about a fellow who's already past that point. He got the hole in his ear, he wanted to stay on, right? So in this case, he's going to work until Yovel. And it so happens that Yovel arrives after 7 years. Okay, so now he goes free. Bottom line, the pasuk is alluding to the observance of Yovel and freeing the slaves accordingly. How? How could that be? There was no... we didn't have a full nation around. No, that pasuk is not speaking about the future. The Navi is admonishing them. When you had the opportunity to do this, when Yovel was in session, did you actually implement it? Did you observe it? So he was telling them off. But certainly now it was too late. They weren't keeping Yovel. What do you mean? But the pasuk there says in response to this admonishment, they took the heed and they actually released their slaves. Apparently, Yovel was in business. Elam Rabbi Yochanan. You're right, it was. You know why? Because Yirmiyah Hichzirim. It so happens that Yirmiyah went out and brought back at least part of the Shvatim, restored them to their territories, and now Yovel was back in session. So he went out and he brought back Reuven, Shevet Gad, Chatzei Shevet Menashe, and all the Aseres HaShvatim which was sent out. So if not all, at least part of them, right? As we learned from Tosfos Daf Lamed Aleph, that you need at least a representation, a portion of the Shevet to be situated in his territory. So now they could observe Yovel again. And who was the ruler? Who was the king at that point? Yeshua ben Amin, Malach Alein. So even though Yeshua was really from Malchi Yehuda, we know that there was this grand split, right? At which point there were Malchi Yehuda reigning over the Yehuda area, and there were Malchi Yisrael reigning over the rest of the Shvatim. But in this case, Yeshua, who was really from the Melech Yehuda, he took over the whole kingship. How do we know that in fact they came back? The Chsiv, because we have in Yecheskel, when he was prophesying about the future, he says, he said, the Churban is coming soon, the Churban in the first place in Mikdash, and this whole idea of a field being restored to its owner due to the arrival of Yovel is not going to happen, because once you leave, you leave. The land, it's not going to... Says the Gemara, why is he even referring to Yovel, which at that point was non-factor, I thought, right? Efshar Yovel, but can you say Yovel was no longer being observed, and the Navi would refer to it as something which will be suspended? Apparently it was currently active. The Navi was prophesying that in the future it's going to be suspended. Apparently what we said was correct, that Yirmiyahu restored the Shvatim, brought back the members of our nation, which reactivated the Yovel. And how do we know that Yeshua, in fact, took charge over them? The Chsiv, Pasuk speaks about eradicating the idols from Eretz Yisrael, which Yeshua did, and it says that he was in the place called Beis El, which we know was not really part of the Yehuda territory. That's where the Malchi Yisrael were, his competing kings were. So what was he doing there? Apparently he took over at that point. What's this mark that I see? He told Mashir, oh, that's Hakevish Alakim, that's from the prophet, Shabam Yehuda came from Yehuda, the whole story, and he was buried there. So what's the Melech Yehuda doing in Beisel, competing territory? What's he doing there? The answer is, because rather because when Yirmiyahu restored our nation, all the Shvatim, Yeshua Melech Aleim, he took over for all. Here's another source that he became the king to all. From this pasuk, Gam Yehuda Shas Katzer Lach B'Shuvi Shvus Ami. So a pasuk that Yehuda, a representative of Yehuda, will be Katzer. Katzer, Rashi says, can be read Katzin, a ruler, because the Reish and the Nun are close to each other in expression, so they can be switched, like Chad Netzar, Chad Retzar. So the Navi is saying that the Melech Yehuda will be in charge of everybody, the whole nation, even on the other Shvatim who are called Ami, my nation, in its totality. Okay, in any case, that was all to explain how they were observing Yovel, which requires the presence of Klal Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael. So yeah, while they were missing, they had to suspend the Yovel, but it was reinstated when they were restored, which of course eventually was suspended again due to the Churban of the second Beis Hamikdash. Due to the Churban of the first Beis Hamikdash. And of course it was not reestablished by the second Beis Hamikdash, as we said, because at that point we didn't really have much, many of our nation present. So Yovel requires that, and at most they can observe Shemitah, and perhaps Yovel if it's necessary for the calculation of Shemitah, as we explained. Okay, in summation, so we have this fellow who sold a bias. He has up until a year to buy it back. The fellow would disappear on him. Hillel Zaken says, no problem, just drop it off, and he knows where to find the money. What does that tell us about a general forcing of a person to take money? That was a discussion in Gemara. What qualifies as a bias b'atei rechayma? Any sort of structure? What about a field within the city, a field which supplies building supply? That was machlekes. What about a house in the chayim itself? That was given to machlekes as well. He needs a proper wall, and a wall built from the time of Yeshua ben Nun, which endows the city, the status of chayma. We had several examples, a printout of some cities that in fact qualified, and we had a whole discussion in the Gemara regarding the Kedushas of Yisrael, which was introduced upon the entry of Yeshua with our nation, and the question was whether that Kedusha lasts throughout, or does it have to be reactivated, refreshed upon returning to Yisrael. Regarding nowadays, the Rambam actually paskins that it depends. The Kedusha of Yerushalayim, the Beis Hamikdash, that outlasts even the Golus, because that's the Kedusha based on the presence of Shechina, which never leaves. In fact, the Gemara says the Kedusha of Hashem is always around, even when we're in Golus. So that's there to stay. But regarding other matters of Kedusha, Eretz Yisrael, Shemitah, Trumas and Meisers, etc., so Rambam explains that that expired once we went into Golus Bavli, because the Kedusha came about through kibush, through conquering, which was no longer, active at that point once they left. But it was reinstated when Ezra came back with our nation the second time around. And at that point, it was reestablished based on, not on conquering, they just settled. It's called chazaka. They just took the land and they settled there. So that they resettled it. So that that type of kedusha stays permanently. Even though ultimately after the second Beis Hamikdash they were Klal Yisrael were taken out of Eretz Yisrael, the kedusha remains throughout. Shivana Beis Hamikdash may remain Amen. All the best to you and Hatzlach.